Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with
Blessing Eche,
Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
Is a critical element of managing the employee-employer relationship, particularly from...
The problem in Nigeria is not corruption, and everybody seems to be very surprised that corruption is not a problem.
How can indigenous languages be promoted in a country like this?
Statistics show that less than 10% of Nigeria, the population of Nigeria, has have access to health insurance. You imagine if our population is about 200 million. And
this is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, good morning and welcome to Early Exchange, where we talk about each. As you know, that Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're going to have another conversation, and our conversation will be in respect to affordable housing in Nigeria. Why has it been so challenging to have affordable housing in Nigeria? These are things we're going to look at today. We're going to do news review and all the things that are trending across the whole world. Don't forget, you can be part of this discussion by going to our social media platform, our Facebook page, our Twitter page, and also our YouTube page at Souq News to share your view, to like, and also be part of this program using the hashtag Early Exchange. We hope that as you spend the next 3 hours with us, whatever you have with you, your breakfast, your cup of tea, if your preference, is coffee, you can have that. We'll spend the next 3 hours with us. We are set to give you the best of programming to make your day remarkable, to make your day unforgettable. It's Early Exchange, and we're going to kick off with news updates shortly after this break. Stay with us.
Three wise men. Iconic sculptures and statues adorn major metropolitan cities of the world. In Lagos, Nigeria, the statue of 3 men designed to depict the state's cultural heritage and to usher in visitors and tourists into the ever-accommodating center of excellence is no doubt an astounding work of art. Originally built under the administration of Colonel Raji Rasaki, designed by Bodu Shodende in 1991 and standing over 12 feet high, referred to as Agba Meta or Aro Meta. The three sculptured chiefs were placed along the Lagos-Ibadan toll gate to welcome people coming into Lagos State. The statue called the Three Wise Men by many has become a major signature for the state. Three white-capped chiefs clad in white wrappers, knotted across their shoulders and with clenched right fists are shown in the artwork. The images fascinate and create impressions in the minds of visitors coming into the state, captivating the attention of visitors who look with keen interest, pondering on the messages which the posture of the engraved images signifies. The Three Wise Men has been relocated thrice from its original position at Ojodu Berger end of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway to Magodo area before its final relocation to its present site at Olowo Drive. The sculpture has suffered severe damages over the years and renovated. Bodu Shodende, through this sculpture, depicted the highest honor that can be afforded to anyone in the eco-greeting tradition. The Three Wise Men, Arometa, Souq Enlightenment.
On social media, many Nigerian young companies were celebrating, wow, we raised Series C, we raised Series D. And anytime they raised these monies, everybody hailed them. But what was behind it? What is behind every raise is that the entrepreneur founder is diluted significantly. We had a very interesting session, and in one of the sessions, there was a role play about a case study on CWG PLC, which is a company that I founded. And the case was written by Columbia Business to discuss a point about venturing, about entrepreneurship, and about funding for the enterprise. And the case ended on the question, should Austin Okere take the venture capital investment or should he reject it? Just a little bit of background. So this is a company, CWG, in 2005 that was doing very well. It was riding on the back of the Y2K that just happened at the turn of the century, was riding on the back of the telecom boom that happened immediately after the civilian government of OBJ and GSM was launched, was riding on the back of the bank consolidation in 2005 that was done by Governor Soludo. And in each of these booms, CWG had positioned and taken good advantage. So this is not a company that was in dire need of cash or was desperate in 2005. But we had a plan to list our shares on the stock market, and we thought that the best way to do it was to first do either a private placement or, better still, to do a venture capital fundraise so that they will bring discipline into our operations, governance, strengthen our governance, and of course, bring more technical knowledge. And if people saw that this company was invested in you, probably it will make the listing on the stock exchange more attractive. The issue here is at what price? And I remember that I've discussed something similar on this on social media, where many Nigerian young companies were celebrating, wow, we raised Series C, we raised Series D. And anytime they raised these monies, everybody hailed them. But what was behind it? What is behind every raise is that the entrepreneur founder is diluted significantly. So if I use CWG as a case study, the case that was written by Columbia was that there was an offer of $8 million for 25% of the company, putting the valuation post at $32 million. Make no mistake, the Treasury bill's interest rate is 15% sometimes. Now, if someone is going to bring his money to invest in your company, he's looking for way more than that 15%, given that there's a high risk that his money will not come back. And the rule of thumb is that they're looking for 3 times what they brought.
You know, statistics show that less than 10% of Nigeria, the population of Nigeria, has, have access to health insurance. You imagine if our population is about 200 million. And,
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development. Good morning and welcome to the morning news update on Souq News, where the world of business, economics, development and policy converge to shape our understanding of today's global landscape. I am Juvi Ufiene. We believe that knowledge is power, and we're here to empower you with the latest news, trends and developments. All right, to begin the news, President Bola Tinubu has granted approval for the disbursement of 18 billion naira to provide group life insurance benefits and other entitlements to the families of fallen servicemen and women in the Nigerian Armed Forces. President Tinubu made this announcement during the launch of the emblem appeal for the 2024 Armed Forces Remembrance Day held at the Council Chamber of the State House in Abuja. This act reflects the commitment to support the families of those who lost their lives while serving the nation and government's dedication to honoring the sacrifices made by the members of the armed forces. Nigeria's Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Atiku Abubakar Bagudu, has stressed the role of private sector investment in combating insecurity in Nigeria. Bagudu made this appeal during the 29th Nigeria Economic Summit, theme Pathway to Sustainable Economic Transformation and Inclusion, held in Abuja, and commended the commitment of local private sector players to invest in Nigeria and the role of the biggest attraction for international investors, while recognizing the negative impact of insecurity on economic growth, investment and employment, and government revenue. He stressed the need for a strong private sector and international investor interest to counter these challenges effectively. The Nigerian Army's 8th Division Garrison says it has recorded a successful operation in Tukandu Village, Sokoto State, where it neutralized a significant number of terrorists. The Director of Army Public Relations, Onyema Nwachukwu, who revealed this, noted that the troops executed a planned operation against a notorious group of terrorists responsible for numerous activities in the region. The operation resulted in the elimination of several terrorists, while others sustained gunshot wounds, and the troops seized a cache of weapons, including 3 AK-47 rifles, 1 PKT gun, amongst others. This successful operation in Sokoto State signifies Nigeria Army's commitment to addressing the threat of terrorism in the region and reflects their dedication to enhancing security and stability. Nigeria's Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Mamman, says the federal government has introduced a policy review to improve transparency and efficiency in contract awarding process. He noted this following the Federal Executive Council FEC meeting presided over by President Bola Tinubu in Abuja. According to him, this policy realignment aims to address concerns related to contract awards and bring government practices in line with the existing Public Procurement Act, which enable Federal Executive Council to prioritize critical national policy matters, while stressing government commitment to support education, training and empowerment of adolescent girls. The minister disclosed the expansion of the program from its initial focus on 7 states to additional 11 states. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Abbas Tajuddin, has pledged that the 10th National Assembly will strengthen the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, RMAFC, to effectively fulfill its statutory responsibilities during a courtesy visit by the RMAFC management in Abuja. The Speaker expressed his concern about the Commission's struggles, including inadequate funding and infrastructure. Having served as a House Committee member on Finance for 8 years, he stressed his advocacy for granting the Commission additional powers and ensured that the National Assembly would play a vital role in providing the necessary support for the RMAFC's success. While responding, the chairman of the RMAFC, Mohammed Bello Shehu, stressed the importance of enhancing the Commission's independence and provide better funding to enable it to carry out its mandated responsibilities effectively. In a bid to cleanse the payroll system of the public service, the federal government is set to halt the salaries of public officers whose records cannot be verified on the Integrated Personnel and Payroll Information System, IPPIS, according to a statement from the head of Civil Service of the Federation, Dr. Folashade Yemi Esson. A 2-week verification process was initiated to accommodate officers who missed prior verifications. This exercise, scheduled to conclude on Friday, October 27, 2023, aims to ensure the accuracy of civil servant records and that any public officer whose record remain unverified at the end of the exercise will be removed from the government payroll. The government decision to reopen the verification portal for a specified period provides a final opportunity for officers to update their records before salary actions are taken for those who remain non-compliant. It's time for a news breather. We'll be right back with more updates, insights, and stories that matter. We'll be back in a jiffy. Glad to know you're still there with us. The Nigeria Railway Corporation (NRC) is set to launch an electronic ticketing, e-ticketing, for the standard gauge network next week. The managing director of the corporation, Fidel Okiria, who reviewed this, noted that the e-ticketing platform is in its final testing phase and will be accessible to a restricted audience initially before becoming available to the general public. He noted further that e-ticketing will help direct ticket sales revenue directly to the government's coffers and reduce the potential for corruption and revenue leakage. According to reports, the e-ticketing rollout will commence on the Abuja-Kaduna route and subsequently extend to other key routes, including Lagos-Ibadan and Itakpe-Warri. Additionally, Ohiria announced plans to increase train speeds on the Lagos-Ibadan standard gauge line from 40 kilometers per hour to 80 kilometers per hour and enhance efficiency and service quality for passengers. The Youth Environmental Advocacy Center, YEAC Nigeria, has launched a comprehensive awareness campaign in secondary schools across Rivers State, targeting organized crimes such as drug abuse, cultism, examination malpractice, and violent extremism. These organized crimes are characterized as activities conducted by highly centralized criminal enterprises, either traditional, national, or local, typically for financial gain. The executive director of the center, Fineface Dominic Fineface, cited the growing instances of examination malpractice in secondary schools and attributed it to various factors, including inadequate parenting, a corrupt educational system, students' attitude, societal shortcomings, amongst others, while noting that organized crime thrives through the corruption of public officials and the use of intimidation or force to safeguard their operations. Fine Face also warned students about the legal penalties associated with exam malpractice, which may include a 5-year jail term or fine of $100,000 under the 1999 Examination Malpractice Act. A group of miners affiliated with an unregistered union has held hundreds of their colleagues underground for a second day in a gold mine in South Africa due to a union dispute resulting in scuffles that left 15 miners injured. The incident occurred at the Model East mine in Springs, east of Johannesburg, when miners from the AMCU union prevented others from leaving after the night shift. The managing company, New Kane-14 Gold Mine, reported that there were 562 miners underground, with approximately 110 to 120 of them being AMCU supporters. The rivalry between the NUM and AMCU unions in the mining industry has been a source of tension, culminating in the Marikana massacre in 2012, where 34 striking mine workers were killed by police. The situation highlights the ongoing labor dispute and tensions within the mining sector in South Africa. The chairman and CEO of Emirates Airline and Group, His Highness Sheikh Ahmed bin Saeed Al Maktoum, says the company is planning to hire 15,000 employees by March 2024, with the company's commitment to attract both local and international talent as part of its growth and expansion strategy. It stressed the significance of investing in citizens' development, adding that Emirates Airline is dedicated to training and empowering the country's citizens across various divisions, departments, and professions. While speaking on the 38th anniversary of Emirates Airline first flight, His Highness noted the aviation sector's role in Dubai's economic development and attributed the company's strong performance in the first half of the current financial year to recovery of global and local markets. Finally, as part of efforts to boost profit, the Chief Executive Officer of Shell Petroleum, Wael Sawan, says it will cut approximately 15% of its workforce in the low-carbon solution division and reduce its hydrogen business. The decision follows Sawan's strategy revamp to prioritize high-margin projects, steady oil output, and natural gas production. Furthermore, the company plans to cut 200 jobs in 2024, with an additional 130 positions under review to reduce the head count in a unit comprising around 1,300 employees. Some of these roles will be integrated into other parts of Shell, which employs over 90,000 people. However, it does not affect the company's renewable power business. And that ends our package for today. Thanks for joining us. Remember, the world of business, development, policy, and economy never sleeps, and neither do we. So keep a close eye on our screen. For more analysis on the early exchange, I am Juvi Ufiene. Idumota Market. Eko Idumota, once a residential neighborhood, is home to Idumota Market located on Lagos Island. It is one of the oldest and arguably one of the largest markets in West Africa. Idumota is a historic neighborhood adjacent to the Lagos port that facilitated the slave trade and later, under the British indirect rule, it surrounded to exports that fueled the colonial enterprise. Idumota was also the location of an armed forces remembrance cenotaph called Soja Idumota, built as a monument to Nigerian soldiers who served with the West African Frontier Force. An Eyo Masquerade statue and a clock tower are also some monuments at Idumota. Idumota Market is so popular that large sales are recorded as early as 7 a.m. The market is made up of hundreds of locked-up shops occupying several multi-story buildings, with some measuring about 5 or more floors. In 2010, the Lagos State government demolished some illegal structures in order to improve vehicular and human movement in and around the markets. During weekdays, the neighborhood of Idumota is densely populated by shoppers, traders, and bus passengers. From the Carter Bridge ascending into Lagos Island, passengers can see the neighborhood before disembarking at their final destination. Idumota Market accommodates the substantial inflow of imported goods. The bulk of import from abroad are routed first through Idumota and then on to other markets through Nigeria and other West and Central African countries. The energy of private Idumota traders and wholesalers facilitate this activity, where millions of US dollars worth of wholesale is exchanged daily. Idumota Market, Souq Enlightenment.
How can indigenous languages be promoted in a country like this?
Statistics show that less than 10% of Nigeria, the population of Nigeria, has, have access to health insurance. You imagine if our population is about 200 million and...
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, it's still early exchange, and it's time for us to do news analysis to review the major headlines trending today, from business to finance and to national issue. We're going to start the news analysis with the 2024 Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which the president yesterday had to unveil the logo for that Armed Forces Remembrance Day. You know, it's going to come up in 2024, but I like the fact that the planning is starting now. And the president kicked off that celebration yesterday with, with the unveiling the emblem for the Armed Forces Remembrance Day. And he also approved the allocation of 18 billion to support families of fallen soldiers. Blessing is here. Blessing, how are you today?
I'm fine. Good morning, Femi.
Yeah, good to see you again at the table for the analysis here.
Oh, yeah. Yes, nice one. President Tinubu granting approval for disbursement of 18 billion naira to provide group life assurance benefits and other entitlements to families of fallen heroes. This will go a long way in motivating the servicemen, those who are still in active service, to put in more when you know that there is something to take care of your family should anything happen to you. It's a lot of motivation, but I do not know how many servicemen will benefit from this. Maybe it's going to be in batches. After some time, those who were not covered or captured in this batch will be taken care of. So it's a nice one. It's long overdue, and is what I think the servicemen deserve, particularly the fallen heroes.
Interestingly, they even deserve more, because these are people who have sacrificed their lives over the years. These are, individuals who gave their life for the sake of Nigeria's unity, togetherness. And, it bothers me that over the years, somehow their families have been neglected. You have a situation whereby, as some of these soldiers they are the breadwinners of their family, and by the time they are gone, no provision is made for their family. It will also bother you where they live. If you go to military barracks, in fact, police barracks, get to some of the states where they live, it's so appalling, the kind of welfare being attributed to these people. And I don't understand why we can't have a situation where when people, who have served the nation needs to get their entitlement, they can't get it as when they need to get it. You have a situation where, the families will wait for years, But I'm happy the president is coming up with this 18 billion support for the families of fallen. It's like a life assurance support, which will also motivate the present set of soldiers to give their best. When you know that after leaving the service, or after giving what you call the ultimate prize, supreme prize for your country, when you're rest assured that the people you're going to leave behind, your family members, are going to be taken care of, that will motivate you to do more. And that's what is happening in the other climb that motivates all these officers. For the president to be coming up with this, I think is coming at a good time. Aland, we have Dr. Idahosa Osama is ready for us, and is joining us live from Morocco. Idahosa, glad you have you join us on this segment for proper news analysis.
Good morning, Femi. Good morning, Blessings. Dear viewers, good morning.
Good morning, Idahosa. Nice to see you again this morning.
All right, we're looking at the 2024 Armed Forces Remembrance Day. The president kicked off the celebration yesterday by unveiling the emblem or the logo for that celebration, and also, approved, the allocation of 18 billion life assurance support for families of fallen heroes. Let me take that to you. Let the news analysis start with you now. What's your take on this?
I think it's a very welcome development, like Blessing has rightly alluded to. There's a whole lot of ways to motivate people and drive their commitment toward the service for the nation. And I think this is one of the gestures that is quite welcoming. And again, it's also speaking to the fact that our president seems to understand that there is a connect between how you treat your workers and the level of delivery that you can expect from them. At the Economic Summit Forum, he was quite clear the other day speaking about public servants and to say that government needs to do a whole lot more to assist them and to drive their passion towards serving the nation. And just like you said, Femi, it's difficult for somebody to commit or give his life to the service of a nation. And then, of course, he's dead. And then the wife and children, you chase them out of the barracks and they have nowhere to live. And then you have just to ask yourself, why were this necessary? And even the children of such fallen heroes do not even want to serve in that kind of capacity. And that's why you see that our public service, a lot of things happen because the way the past service officers were treated directly impact on how current people see service. So for me, it's welcoming. I was still saying to some people here yesterday, there's so much that we have not done about the use of insurance as a veritable tool for motivation. What this means is that, of course, these people are insured and they are given life insurance so that in case of death, these people, family can actually have something to fall on and then continue to live. And this is a motivation. You just imagine that every serviceman understood that if I serve this nation and I pay the ultimate price or sacrifice to defend my fatherland, I have some amount of money, 100 million, that is put on my head by the federal government, which of course my family can draw from the insurance if I'm no longer here. Such person will be willing to put down his life, and that also shows that the nation valued them. And I think these are some of the things that we will need to explore going forward to see that we find the necessary commitment from those who serve the nation to put their life on the line in the defense of our sovereignty.
I think on this was that the federal government will implement what I call pay as you go, that kind of assurance package whereby if an officer leaves, the service, or if an officer dies, what you do is the pay as you go is you pay all the entitlements or the allowances immediately. The timeliness is very crucial to the family because at that period there's a vacuum when it comes to somebody sponsoring or taking care of the welfare of the family. The person who is doing that has gone or is no more available. And so what should be done immediately is to all the entitlement, release them because the timeliness matters to help the family so that they can keep up with their responsibility. And if this is done, it will even motivate the present crop of officers to give their best, knowing fully well that when anything happens, they are covered.
Yes, timeliness of the pay is very key, not just for servicemen, but even for civil servants. But I think that of civil service has become better now with the contributory pension scheme. So it shouldn't be a thing where it's the widow of the soldier who has died that is now crying out. Sometimes you see them with placards, trying to embarking on peaceful protests just to draw attention to their plight. And it becomes a very pathetic situation because, when the breadwinner is out of the picture, the family is dealing with grief and they're also dealing with the need to ensure that basic provisions are made. So they having what they've worked for as soon as they leave the service, or as soon as something happens and the soldier dies while in service, the family within the first week should get their benefits. And if it's possible for those in service, a kind of scheme where they can also from time to time have access to what is being laid aside for them and channel it into specific investments, maybe some form of trust fund for their children to take care of education while they are gone, so that they have a say to an extent with what happens with the entitlement. Because you understand the African setting too, releasing such amounts when the person dies could also attract family members who would take the money. Now, that's just on one side. We're not entirely the business of the government, but maybe if a soldier has put in some years of work, whatever you have for them, they can have access to it, maybe not collecting it, but deciding what kind of investment it should go into for them, and then they have access to it when it is needed.
All right, we need to commend the president for this development because I remember these veterans had their protest early this year. They went to the National Assembly to protest about their allowances, and so this is respite coming to them. All right, let's look at the issue of insecurity. And according to the Minister for Budget, he emphasized the importance of private sector investing in combating security. I always say we always believe government should do everything, but also there's a need for private organizations to also contribute their own part of it, and that's what the minister is saying here, that apart from what government to do to combat security, there's need for private sector to also invest in that sector, even private individuals who are security experts or who run security outfits to also contribute to their part to national development. Hidauza, how do you feel about this news?
Well, again, it's like also moving Lagos to Abuja, so to speak, because Tinubu in his tenure as the governor of Lagos State actually had put in place Lagos State Security Trust Fund, where private individuals and businesses in Lagos had to contribute certain amount. Then, of course, this was was used to support the rapid response squad in Lagos. And that's why you see the level of security that we have in Lagos as of today. So I think it's something that is welcoming, because if the society is not secure, not safe, your investment as a business will not be safe, and you cannot really make the desired profit as you would want to have it. So for me, it's quite logical for private business people to put in some resource to drive and help secure and provide safety for businesses and for those who work. That being said, managing it is another thing, and I do hope that, of course, there will be a special committee that's comprising both the media, the civil society groups, and then, of course, captains of industries, who will determine how this so mobilized fund will be used, and they are channeled into the right places to guarantee life and properties of people who live within the territory of Nigeria.
And a lot of private sector individuals, private companies can do this through corporate social responsibility. That's one way to take care of insecurity within the community where they're located. They can have some projects. Some companies, you find that they embark on street lighting. They make sure they take care of street lighting to light up the area, because in the dark, a lot of evil can thrive where the place is dark. So that's one. Some too also build police posts where you don't have any within the locality. That's part of it too. And with the private sector being strengthened, where a lot of persons are engaged to, it also reduces the hands that are idle. So that means there's less labor in the insecurity markets, so to speak. So, but it's something that the private sector should see also as their duty. It is not for government alone, because if it's left for government to handle, it means that the pace at which success will be recorded will be slowed down. And it also affects their business. Your business can thrive in an insecure environment. You would not really have a lot of people wanting to work in a place where they're not sure of your safety, and even people coming to do business in a place where they're not sure of their safety. Even your company, some companies have to relocate to other places because of issues of insecurity. So until the private sector sees too as their business and as an aspect that they also have roles to play, then it will not be something that will be quickly addressed. So they have a lot of work to do. CSR is key, and ensuring that in whatever way that they can, they provide support to the government to tackle insecurity.
All right, I quite agree with you. That's quite important. Now, still on this issue of security, we're looking at the war against terrorism, and the Nigerian Army launches successful operation against terrorists in Sokoto. You will have this trend where terrorism was more prevalent in the northeast, Borno and other axes like that, but because due to increased activities of military presence, military activities. Some of them are being displaced now, and they are moving to states like Kaduna and Sokoto, and that's why even Zamfara, because of the existence of gold mine and some interest there. And so these terrorists are just not based in the northeast anymore, because they are just moving to other parts due to the military activities. But now there's a need to launch a military presence in the state like Sokoto, and that's why to tackle this terrorism, we must agree that it's becoming, in fact, it's a global phenomenon, not becoming. And then there's a need to put all the things in their arsenal together to ensure that they tackle the issue of terrorism. Let me take this to a man in Morocco, Idauza. What's your take on this?
It's quite good to think about using hard power to fight terrorism. But I think there's something that we must come to terms with is terrorism functions or thrive with poverty. And this is one of the issues that, of course, government will need to pay close attention to. That, yeah, using guns to drive terror will not eventually fight it, because when you look at it, especially given the Karl Marx postulations on how people would think in a given situation, that people are giving to terrorists as if they are fighting against capital. Now, if you want to deal with this issue, what you need to really do is, and this is where government needs to up their game in terms of empowering the people, especially the very poor and vulnerable, who can easily yield to those who are profiting from terrorism. I had a kind of a testimonial yesterday from one of our service personnel who were here together, and he was telling me that when he was the command brigade in Bassa in Borno State, what he did to actually ensure that young people were empowered and encourage them into farming. And a lot of them are doing excellently well. And they also commended the governor of Borno State, who also has also come to their aid in terms of providing tractors for them to do beans farming. And he said even himself, who participated in the scheme, had about 300 bags of beans harvested last year alone. And I think this is where government really needs to help people to understand that if people have hope for living means of livelihood, they will not give to terror. So we must fight poverty and ensure that there is no breeding ground for terrorists in our environment.
And the work of the Nigerian military, what they're doing in dislodging the terrorist group, and I want to encourage that they work more to gather intelligence, and Nigerians need to help them too, because these people live among us. Some of them are just going about as normal people, but if you notice something that is quite strange with the movement of people and the activities, then it's a responsibility to alert the security operatives.
When you see something, you say something.
Yes, when you see something, you say something. And sometimes people get scared about how confidential such information will be treated. But I want to believe that it is treated with utmost confidentiality, so people should not be scared to report such. And there's also room for anonymous tip. It's just for you to provide the information, and you can do that being anonymous. So it's a good one. We do hope that they will continue to succeed and gain more ground against the terrorist group.
The issue of intelligence is very critical, and this time around it has to be localized, what we call native intelligence.
Yes.
And that duty has to be performed by citizens, people who live in those communities, because they understand the terrain. They live in those communities. In fact, some of those people, they know them, because some of them used to live in those communities or live in those communities. So when you engage what we call locals to do what we call native intelligence, I'm aware we have the joint civilian task force who have been put together to complement the effort of the military. Of course, we don't know, we understand they don't have the training, the military training, but they can also complement the efforts of the military men by providing support, civilian support, intelligence, and also to give them information that could be of interest to the military men. So there's a need to strengthen that part, equip these people, give them with the right target, and also bring in technology into this. How well or how much of technology are these civilians, do they have access to internet, devices that could give them the capacity to provide this kind of intelligence? So these are things the military also need to work on to complement the efforts of their soldiers.
And there are some persons who are being complicit for gains because those who supply them food are citizens.
Yeah.
Those who supply them with some materials.
Even logistics.
Logistics are citizens of this country. So if you think that you're gaining, then you need to think again and reconsider, because you're not actually gaining. You're only perhaps buying time, because while you may be helping a particular group, the other group don't know you. They may be coming for your family members. So it is not enough to be a sellout. It's not a thing that you have to, because of financial gains, become a sellout to your country. Now, this is something that affects us all, and we need to do our bit to ensure that we provide the military, provide security operatives with every support, and intelligence, like we talked about, is a very key aspect of it.
So let's look at what the federal government is doing in respect to contract reforms. The federal government has announced policy to review contract awards and education support. This is to bring government practices in compliance with Public Procurement Act. The need for due process when it comes to award of contracts in public services is very critical. And if you look at the Public Procurement Act, this has been spelled out. But over the years, you discover that people go against this in the name of politics or interest, or you have business interest in someone. Well, it's very important now because every contract has to be accounted for. There must be accountability, transparency. Let me take this to Ida Hauser, FG announcing policy to review contract reforms, in Nigeria.
It's part of the things that we're actually doing here. This study tour to Morocco is actually to empower public servants in terms of embracing e-procurement, and then, of course, developing a solicitation document. And that's been what has occupied us here in the last 3 or 4 days, looking at how we can save the nation unnecessary stress of litigation. We thank God that recently the federal government, by the Ministry of Justice and the Attorney General of the Federation, has been able to successfully prosecute the P&ID case in London, which was supposed to have cost the nation the sum of about $11 billion. That was enough to cripple the whole economy of Nigeria if P&ID had won that case. And if you saw what really happened in that case, is that some private individual who represent government signed this contract without necessarily really looking at the terms, and then of course put the entire nation into trouble. And I think this is what government is trying to avoid, because there are a whole lot of cases and litigations where individuals who want to benefit from contracting had to do it, and sometimes they have to also break protocol without recourse to the Ministry of Justice, who is supposed, especially in the case of international contracting, to review and dot the I's and cross the T's. And this breach of procedure has been really prevalent, and so government is also really putting resources to see how to train procurement officers in terms of writing entering into agreement or contract with contractors and suppliers, so that the nation is not so changed. I think it's a welcome development. We need to do all this. The Ministry of Justice also developing a software that, of course, will help like a template for all contracting for government business. And this will go a long way in reducing litigations and the fund that government spend in terms of prosecuting some of these cases that are not necessary.
All right, I like that concept, e-procurement, which means everything has to be online, and that's a good one. A station whereby you can go to the portal, to the website, and see who is taking this contract, as at when. You can see the profile of the company, the amount, you know, the time, the contract, every detail about the contract is well spelled out. And that brings efficiency, it brings openness and transparency into
the system.
Yeah.
Because there's a practice too where some people take up contract that they do not plan to execute and then they sublet it to another firm. So the name you're seeing on paper is different from the company that's actually executing
In fact, what they do is some of them who have the political connection take the contract and now sublet to professionals.
Yes.
By the time the contract will exchange hands, you know, commission and a lot of things will have happened to the budget. That's where padding and some other things
comes
take place.
in, and then the actual contractor is feeling like, oh, this is your money's worth.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the money that was allocated for it is larger than what they were given. So it's to take care of a lot of issues.
Yeah, I remember there was a situation that happened a few weeks ago, you know, with the Minister of Works. You know, there was a contractor who was supposed to have constructed a road, you know, a particular in the east. To the tune of 400 million naira, and the contractor collected the money, has not done anything, and the minister was even saying, okay, let's even assume you haven't done anything, there's a need for you to, you know, there was this going back and forth, and I was like, why would we have a situation like this? But if we have something like e-procurement, from the beginning you know who is who. You can tell if this person will deliver or not. If this person is a political jobber or a political contractor, you can tell if the person has the capacity, looking at the company's profile. And then when you need to check out what the company has done even
before,
if
it's quite easy to run a background check.
Great. So it will be a game changer, and we're looking forward to that. Idauza, how do you think this can be adopted in Nigeria? And what are the lessons for Nigeria, you know, looking at this e-procurement?
Yeah, the Bureau for Public Procurement is doing a great deal, and especially they are the one also that has sponsored this training tour to Morocco. Last year, they had done same to the UAE, where all procurement officers had to be trained. The applications are being developed. It's in the final stage. Some government agencies, about 6 of the ministries or MDAs, have now been selected for the trial run of this e-procurement. And what this is going to do is that it will make the system more efficient, cost-effective, openness and transparency in the process of doing this business. Like the president said when he came in, he is determined to see how much of e-government we can have in Nigeria, where people can access government services, not based on who they know, but based on their competence and their capacity to deliver such goods. So what that will mean is that once this process kicks off, as we're expecting it to start the first quarter of 2024, a whole lot of sanity will come into the contracting system and then the procuring of public goods. Because like as it is said today, about 98% of all the fraud that happen in government happen at the corridor of procurement. And like you said, in terms of road contracting, when you give contract to people who don't have capacity or competence to do it, at the end of the day, you see a whole lot of things happening. And there are a whole lot of things in the Procurement Act, for example, that says if you don't have money, don't give contract out. But you also see that some civil servants are also contravening those rules, that even when they don't have resource, they are still awarding contracts and giving mobilizations. And then, of course, they know that they are not even actually able to deliver on these goods. So a whole lot of sanity will come into procurement process, and then it will save the nation hard-earned resource that is being wasted at the moment of corruptly being taken by very corrupt public officers. So this is where the government is going. It's no longer anything that somebody will be able to resist, especially even in terms of assessing grants and support from multilateral bodies. Is now also becoming a prerequisite for us to be able to gain facilities from World Bank or the Bretton Woods institutions, that we want to say, number one, that your procuring entity, they are climate conscious, and then of course they are also looking at best value for money. All of what these things are happening, and I think we're already embracing it. We are working toward it. BPP is doing a great deal in this regard to see that the entire process is sanitized.
Let's wrap up our news analysis with this story on IPPIS, which is Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System. And the story is FG to all salaries of workers not on IPPIS. You know, it's like an integrated payroll system whereby it brings central, kind of payment and then openness like efficiency into payroll system. You know, this became an issue between the federal government and ASU at a point where the federal government told the ASU, ASU had to come up with its own scheme and all that. But this time around, the federal government is saying salaries of workers who are not on IPPIS will not be paid. Let me take you to the man in Morocco to wrap it up. Idauza, IPPIS, your take on this?
Yeah, I think it was one of the best reform, especially in terms of personnel administration that has happened to us. We have had a lot back and forth, especially with the Academic Staff Union of Universities who didn't want to be part of that project. And the reason, of course, was quite clear, and this is, of course, where government is also not communicating very well. What were their issues? They thought that their job is peculiar, and therefore there are some allowances that they are supposed to earn that, of course, are not been able to be programmed into that software, which was completely not correct from the ASU point of view. The truth of the matter was that there's a rule in the public service that if you're working for federal government, you cannot earn salary in two places. So what ASU were doing was the fact that if they want to go on sabbatical within the nation, they didn't need to go to sabbatical in a federal university. They could go to a sabbatical in a state-owned university, and that would have solved that problem. And we didn't need that extended period of argument or back and forth. So IPPS is to streamline and ensure that in the payroll of the public office, public servants, there are not duplications, that nobody is earning federal government salary in multiple places, and that cleans up the system, and the issues of ghost worker is resolved. And I think, again, this government is trying as much as possible to see how much to extend only branches to people who had refused to enlist in this project. But for me, it's one of the things that we must embrace as a people, and then, of course, see how we can really clean up our system and have a clean government where corruption is almost to zero.
What's your take on this?
Yes, I'm just curious as to why some workers are not, their records are not found. Is it that they didn't register? Because verification was done, according to the head of civil service of the Federation, Dr. Folashade Eso. And a 2-week verification process was initiated to accommodate officers who had missed prior verification. So what is happening? I think it is something that should be investigated. If you are in service, why are you not partaking in verification exercises that are done? So I think it's for the officers affected to report to the head of service and state why they were not captured or why their records are not found. If it has to do with maybe an error, then it can be resolved. But if it's an outright refusal to be part of the scheme, I don't think they have an option, because your employer determines the channel through which you're paid.
All right. On that note, we have to wrap up.
ASU actually had told their staff not to register at the beginning because they felt that the system was not benefiting them. And there are also some people, of course, who get into employment and they were really not, they have not followed the proper channel and they have not been captured, in which case their employment has not been ratified. Now, some of these are the issues that, of course, government is opening up new doors to, so that this set of people who were not captured in the IPPS, they can come into the scheme, and then, of course, they are regularized.
Thank you for providing that insight. We want to thank you for spending time with us on News Analysis today.
Thank you, Femi.
All right, now let's go on a short break, and when we return, our big conversation for today will kick off. Stay with us.
How can indigenous languages be promoted in a country like this?
Statistics show that less than 10% of Nigeria, the population of Nigeria, has, have access to health insurance. You imagine if our population is about 200 million. And,
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, glad to have you join us on our big discussion for today. And our focus is going to be on affordable housing in Nigeria. Looking at the word affordable, how many Nigerians can afford, to pay or get a house now, looking at the present economic reality, looking at the purchasing power, the exchange rate, the inflationary rate in Nigeria. This is why this conversation is critical. We're going to have an expert in the house soon who's going to talk about it, what we need to do as a nation. The critical issue comes when it comes to the issue of financing. A lot of Nigerians pay out of their pocket to get, housing and to pay for houses. But the ideal thing should be mortgage financing. Why has it not been working? These are things we're going to look at. What state is it now? What's the federal government doing in this light? What kind of policy should the federal government come with to ensure that Nigerians have access to affordable housing, not just on the federal level, even at the state level, and then the local government level? Now let's take this special report. When we have the special report, we'll return to start our discussion with our special guest. Stay with us.
According to Abraham Maslow, man's basic needs include need for esteem, safety, self-actualization, and physiological needs. Man wouldn't be able to fully achieve the other needs if his physiological needs like shelter is not met. As such, Nigeria, with a growing population of over 200 million people, has an estimated 28 million housing deficit as of 2023, indicating that it needs at least 28 million housing units to adequately provide shelter for its population. The problem of shortage of affordable and decent housing in Nigeria is significantly pronounced in urban areas where rapid urbanization and population growth have surpassed the construction of new housing units. To many in the know, addressing housing deficit in Nigeria is a rather complex challenge arising from factors such as limited access to mortgage financing, high construction costs, inadequate infrastructure developments, policy reforms, and an increasing urban population. The shortages of affordable and decent housing had led to rising crime rates, increased poverty, sluggish economic growth, amongst others. These problems could be a thing of the past in Nigeria if the private sector is encouraged in housing production with help of incentives, loans, subsidies, and building land readily made available and accessible to potential builders. Also, sustainable housing which focuses on creating environmentally friendly, energy efficient, and socially responsible living spaces could help promote design that accommodate the needs of residents while minimizing environmental impact. The new government might want to revisit past reforms, seek policies that could be adaptable to Nigeria, and work with private sectors to see how the problem of shortage of affordable and decent housing becomes a thing of the past. Juvi Ufiene, Souq News.
All right, that report has set the pace for our discussion today, looking at affordable housing, and that report was put together by our producer, Juvi, and I must commend him for doing a good job there. So we want to look at that, and the statistics is showing that about 75% of Nigerians don't have access to affordable housing, because the word affordability is very crucial here. Let me take this to Blessing. Looking at the economic reality in Nigeria, and every Nigerian, when it comes to affordable, housing, this is elusive to them, especially to the low or the middle class. Even the rich, there's this idea that even the rich also cry.
Yes.
When it comes to this kind of reality too, the rich know that even if you're not crying, you're paying more, to get your housing done, to get the services of someone who's going to, in the other climb, where you have access to mortgage financing. There's an arrangement where you even make some payments instrumentally to get your housing, for you. But this time around, of course it's available here, but not at the scale at which one is expected to have gone. You're looking at the population of Nigeria, about 200 million. The present housing scheme is overstretched. In fact, the population is more than the available houses or the housing scheme in Nigeria. And that's why you see every slum, in every time you see slums springing up, because people have to make provision for themselves. If they can't afford to get a standard house, some people will have to stay in shanties, in makeshifts, in slums where they feel their finances will give them the affordability, and this has thrown up a lot of challenges over the years.
Yes, housing is a major problem in a country like Nigeria, and the housing deficit is quite large because it's not easily affordable. A lot of persons come into ownership of houses today by their own effort, being able to purchase a land and then take care of the building cost. But how many persons can do that with what they earn? So it's a challenge. Now, one would expect that maybe the government comes in at several levels providing affordable housing, but there's not much the government can also do in that regard. And sometimes when those provisions are made, they're tailored to cater for those under government employ, maybe civil servants, and so maybe through some form of contributory scheme or a mortgage kind of scheme, they can own houses and then begin to pay in installments. But we do have the Federal Mortgage Bank that should be open to people. But the thing is, a lot of Nigerians do not even know about the existence of Federal Mortgage Bank, and they do not know the requirements. What qualifies you to be given, to come under that scheme or to be a beneficiary of it. So these are some of the things that need to be exposed to Nigerians so that they can take advantage of it. And then the housing issue vary from one city to the other. In a place like Lagos, it's a major challenge because it's very much populated, and you know that land is not so easy to come by in Lagos. So these are some of the peculiarities that Lagos deals with when it comes to housing. But let's take the matter to the table of Otumba Gbemi Oyinyeyin, who's the MD, CEO, Realtors Billionaire Group, RBG. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me on the program again today.
Nice to have you. So let's look at the issue of affordable housing. Now, I just talked about it varying from one city to the other, using Lagos as an example. But what's your take on the huge housing deficit that we currently have in Nigeria?
Well, the major challenge, which we're all aware of, is the fact that we have, certain limitations that it's not peculiar to Nigeria alone, just basically any developing country. One, rapid population growth. And just like you mentioned, Lagos, everybody's trooping to Lagos to make ends meet, since there's no other state in the country that has the same level of opportunity and economic empowerment like Lagos. So every day, thousands of people troop into Lagos. How will government be able to plan for that? So definitely that leads to inadequate infrastructure. And of course, you'll be talking about land acquisition and ownership problem, because don't forget that traditionally land is owned by some families or the indigenes, and for you to acquire, there are issues, challenges. So, and again, our economy has not been doing too well. In the last 80 years. Also, in the last few years, also dollar keeps rising against our naira. So it's just and that also impacts on the cost of housing, cost of land, even to ordinary people to be able to get just a room to rent in Lagos now, it's almost out of the reach of the ordinary citizen because of the high cost of rent, high cost of housing and all that. And also, there is no system, like you mentioned earlier, that the Federal Mortgage Bank should have been the stopgap for particularly at least those who have regular income and all that to be able to access, through the National Housing Fund, But all that, again, information is key. And that is why we need to, because at least a few years ago, the government has made it possible for people to access, at least those who contributed into the National Housing Fund, NHF, at least to access 25% of their contribution to be able to buy land. But then that also has some challenge because you can only access that if you are buying a property. They don't give you money to go and buy land. They give you money to buy a property. And that property must be in a location that already has a title document. And then when you look at the average Nigerian, what can they afford? Can they afford to buy a property in Lekki or, areas that are fully developed with title? So that poses another challenge. And then, those are some of those, all those, and then even when you get the opportunity to get inequality, corruption, bureaucracy, so a lot of things have bedeviled the average Nigerian in terms of housing.
Right. Let's look at the issue of mortgage financing. Ideally, like we've said, this should take care of issues like this. But what are the critical challenges, confronting mortgage financing in Nigeria? What are the bottlenecks? And then how can it be simplified for Nigerians to have access to affordable housing?
Well, that is where government comes in. I mean, anything bureaucracy has to do with government. So if we're talking about, making that process easier, it still lies with government. And number one that I will mention is information. Most people don't still believe that this is happening. Even those who are qualified, even those who have been, contributing into the NHS for 10 years, for 15 years, because I have a personal experience that my wife also, in fact, the bank had been, informing her for the past 3 years that take advantage of these, said, where is it possible? What about the process? It's just like you mentioned, bureaucracy, that who wants to go through that before you know it, they tell you you'll have to go to Abuja, you have to go and see somebody before they approve your stuff. The process can take 1 year and all that. So information, it's necessary, it is important for government to come out, to educate, to orientate, citizens. Number one, that if you have contributed to the NHF just for 6 months, after 6 months, you are eligible to apply. Hey, that sounds unbelievable, and it's like, how is that possible? How many people would it? But it is possible, and it is happening. So number one, and maybe that is where the media also comes up with this kind of educative, programs for more people to be able to call in and then hear and know that it is possible. At least I'm not a government official, so if I'm saying something is possible, it's something that we have just done. We just got a property, through the NHF, just a few months ago. Yes, the process took about, about 3-4 months, thereabout, but it's done, it's possible that people can begin to contribute into the National Housing Fund through the Federal Mortgage Bank. Cooperatives can begin to do that now. Corporate organizations, businesses, your own company, your media house can also do that, register, and then let staff begin to at least contribute into that fund. And that gives them at least that access to be able to do that. So, but on the part of the government now is to make the process more accessible and easier, that people don't need to begin to travel down, because when I was in their office, we're also trying to register our own staff, under the NHF stuff, which we started just about a few weeks ago. So people still have to come down to their office. So again, they need to make sure that this process can be done, remotely. You don't need to physically come to the office to submit form or to get the information you need. I mean, so these are just the areas that I believe the government can come in and let people know and make it easy. Thank you.
All right, you just talked about the need for information, but as critical as housing, and there is a National Housing Fund, why has the information not disseminated, not to every Nigerian? Why is it not out there? Why does it seem like something of privilege? You only come by it maybe by the nature of what you do, or if you are in an organization that is part of such scheme. And for those in the informal sector, how can they be incorporated into such?
Still boils down to information, still boils down to government orientation. Like I said, registered corporate organizations, registered cooperatives can always, they have the right and the structure to apply for this. So even the market women, the traders, because they are well organized, they have cooperatives that are well registered, they can approach, the Federal Mortgage Bank. Or they can come through realtors like us, to bring them into the system. So it is possible, but, information is lacking. So I will say your media house is doing a good thing in this regard. Let the news begin to go out. Let the awareness be created so that at least more and more people will know it is possible. It was not possible 3-4 years ago, but this thing has been signed into law, and that is why it started gradually, and it's going to increase because more and more people are getting aware of it, and then they are taking advantage of it.
All right, let's look at how much of pressure is coming from rural-urban migration, how much it has affected, provision of housing and then access to housing in Nigeria, this issue of rural-urban migration. How much of pressure or influence has it had on the issue of providing affordable housing in Nigeria?
Okay, how can a government truly plan for a city like Lagos, where thousands troop in unchecked every day? How do you budget for that? How can you cope with that? So it's actually going to be a holistic, approach to it. For example, if the Dangote refinery were to be in Olokola, where originally it was meant to be sited, millions of people will troop to that area. the pressure is not going to come to Lagos. If other refineries in the country begin to work, the one in Kaduna, the one in Port Harcourt, the one in Warri, I mean, thousands and thousands of people will also move from Lagos and other states to those locations. So there must be a national, approach to this. But as long as it is only a state like Lagos that people can buy and sell and do business, and people can run down for employment, because in Lagos, like they say, except you are lazy, it's only the lazy that will go hungry in Lagos. Because even if it's for you to go and stand at the junction, or and just be diverting or traffic, people will start giving you money. Whether it's pure water you want to sell, you make money. Whether it's to sweep the street, you make money. So in Lagos, you find that people create jobs for themselves. But until other aspects of the country, other industries, other states start developing economic activities, that is the only way Lagos could be eased out. If not, the problem is going to continue and government cannot solve it. Private developers cannot also solve it because they don't have all the funding to be able to, continue. And don't forget also that even the land mass, the land space in Lagos is limited. Like everybody knows, I mean, there's virtually no more land in Lagos. And that is why land reclamation has been on the increase, because people still want to stay within, Lekki, within the urban centers. And so they keep just, reclaiming land just to create artificial land. And that is also affecting, the ocean encroachment and all that is also increasing. So we need a holistic approach to the matter.
Some initiative towards providing affordable housing for Nigerians. You have schemes that allow people who want to own land to pay in installments. How's that working? And how does this affect the private investors? When you give people the chance to pay for land, and some pay in some states, in some locations, as low as 1,000 naira daily payment. For you who has acquired the land, how long will it take for you to recoup your investment? So how's it working out?
Well, when you look at it, some of these things sometimes can be very fraudulent. That's the truth of the matter. Just like you said, if you're asking somebody to pay 1,000 naira every day and all that, so how long is it going to take? So that you find that at the end of the day, even when the person has now paid, how many years is now going to take? We have instances that some real estate companies, even 3 years after people have completed, payment, subscribers cannot get land to be allocated to them. And I mean, it was a major issue, even last year, that some people have to go to a real estate company and then to make noise, became legal issues. I mean, how can you pay for land finally? But the truth of the matter is that when you ask, 500 people to be paying for the same land, at the end of the day, they will sell and market and market and market, and then they will sell more than the land available. So when those people now finally, because some people will pay outright, some people will say they're going to pay 6 months. So, but where it is done, properly, and then it is being reasonable. I mean, people can have structured payment, instrumental payment for 12 months, for 18 months. Those are still manageable. You're saying, oh, within 2 years, at least you can complete your payment. And also, when that is done, the person who is paying outright is buying the land at a cheaper rate than you who want to spread your payment. So also the investor has already imputed the cost of appreciation on the land for that period of time. For example, if you're paying after 6 months, there could be a 10% markup. If you're paying after 12 months, there could be a 15% markup on the initial outright price, and just like that. So that is at least reasonable and genuine. You can't say that the person who is paying outright is going to pay the same amount, as the person who is going to complete payment in 18 months. No, except, that's just fraudulent. But it is helping because, for example, in our own company, I mean, so many people have taken advantage of that, and the, instrumental payment over, 12 months, 18 months, and then they've been allocated, because what we do is to say, we give you allocation after 50%. Once you've done 50% of payment, you are going to be given at least paper allocation, so that you know the exact plot and size of what you are paying for. So it's not until when that is completed, or that you're going to be given allocation. So if it is genuine, it is good, and it has helped.
All right, let's look at the issue of rent. For some Nigerians who can afford to pay out of their pocket or make arrangements to, get their own house or housing scheme, they opt for rent. And you have a situation in some states where they have to pay for 2 years and more. I remember in Lagos State, the issue of Lagos Tenancy Bill, which came up with the idea of paying rent for 1 year. But you discover that people's landlords or homeowners, they ask for 2 years, or property owners ask for more years. How does this affect, affordability when it comes to housing, and then the impact of that on housing development in Nigeria?
Well, if you listen to the president, Tinubu, recently in his speech, when he was talking about corruption and then possibility of credit facility for citizens, and that is going to be one of the cardinal things that his administration is going to put in place. And how do you expect ordinary civil servants to be able to afford 5 million naira, outright to put down to get a property, or even to pay 1.2 million for a rent for a 2-bedroom apartment? How? These are some of the things that push people into all kinds of corrupt tendencies and activities, even in the corporate sector. Because if you can afford rent, like as of today in Lagos, you want to get just a room self in Lagos now in some locations, I mean, you'll be talking about minimum of 450,000 a room self. So how will a fresh graduate or just an office assistant be able to afford that? Where are they going to be able to get that? They cannot approach the bank for loan. They can't access anything. The landlord also is asking for, at least the only good thing is that for house rent, the issue of 2 years and all that at least have subsided, because the reality is clear that 80%, 90% of the citizens cannot afford even the 1 year you are talking about. I mean, in the last 2 years, landlords have realized, because of since the COVID era, it's not easy. So that is no longer, selling. If you are moving to an apartment for, yes, they call it, 1 year. But maybe if it's for shop, for commercial shops and all that, they still request for like 2 years or 1.5 years because of the high demand for them. So that one is just a case of, demand and supply. But whether we like it or not, the cost of rent is pretty high, and that is hindering. And also, you will also realize, like human beings, we will always find alternatives. That is why people, the concept of shared apartment, shared room, is now very common in Lagos. Because when people cannot afford to even renew their rent, so they have to bring in, somebody in that are going to share the rent with. So in Lagos now, I know of apartments where 3-4 people are staying together, and then they are sharing, the bill, because it's not easy for somebody to raise the 1.2 million or 1 million. So 4 of them might come together. If it's a 3-bedroom apartment, okay, each of you take one room, even the sitting room, they can divide it and rent that one out, so that at least at the end of the day, everybody's just paying maybe like 400, and then to be able to survive. So that is what is happening. The reality is staring us in the face, and then people are adjusting to it.
Okay, let me ask you something related to what you just talked about. Apart from the demand for 2 years down payment, there's also something that has been introduced into rent. It started as a legal agreement and you paying agency fee. So now there used to be a percentage for this, but now you find that, for example, if you want to rent a room, maybe the rent is 300,000, for instance, and then they tell you that the legal agreement fee, agency fee, and I think there's caution fee as well, is almost more than 300,000 or equal to that. So you add it together, it becomes like 600,000. So where did these practices come from? What are how necessary are these fees, and how come it has become a practice where the fees you pay becomes more expensive or as expensive as the rent? The implications of this on people's ability to afford housing, not just in Lagos, but nationwide.
Well, that is an offshoot of capitalism. It's an offshoot of, demand and supply. People take advantage of others to enrich themselves. And we are in a capitalist, economy where the government cannot tell house owners, this is how much you must charge. Government cannot tell agents, you cannot, collect more than this percentage. I mean, if you're getting a property, maybe 1 million and above, you're going to be charged 10% agency, 10% legal, and then service charge and, caution fee. If you are getting an ordinary shop, there's a current case I'm aware of, a small shop that costs 10,000 naira per month, that is 120,000 per annum. The lady is being asked to pay 40,000 naira for agency and 40,000 naira for legal, and another 20,000 naira for caution. That's 100,000 naira for a shop of 120,000 per annum. So it is frustrating. And to be honest with you, I don't know how the government can come in. There was a time in Lagos that the government brought out and, that, landlords should not charge. It can never work because the houses are private ownership. So how are you going to tell the landlord, this is the amount you should charge for rent? Or you should not charge more than, we should not collect rent more than. So it's we're exposed to all of these because we're in a capitalist system. And that is what makes life more difficult for people. Now, when you go to more civilized economies, you know, who can even afford to pay 1 year rent in advance over there? How many? What is the percentage of the population in England that can pay 1 year rent in advance? It's not even possible. So the realities of every economy determine what is, you know, going to be possible. Like I just mentioned earlier, 4 or 5 years down the line ago, I mean, landlord will insist 2 years, but when COVID started and, you know, even their existing tenants cannot renew their rent, reality was done on them. So a landlord that you even give 6 months, you will collect sharp and say, okay, so when are you going to pay because of the reality of the times. And that is why for
Otumba
major
Bemi, we
or
will
normal
continue this
rent,
conversation after this quick break. So you will have the opportunity to continue with your line of thought on this. Please stay with us. We'll be back after this break.
Okay, thank you.
How can indigenous languages be promoted in a country like this?
You know, statistics show that less than 10% of Nigeria, the population of Nigeria, has, you know, have access to health insurance. You imagine if our population is about 200 million. And,
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Thank you for staying with us. We've been talking with Otumba Bemi, and he's the MD, CEO, Realtors Billionaire Group, RBG, and he's been talking to us about housing finance as we look at affordable housing and housing development in Nigeria. He was on the line of thought responding to the question of some fees that are incorporated into the rent, making the ability for some Nigerians to afford good housing more difficult. So please continue with your thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you very much. So as I was saying, the government can not really do anything in that regard. You know, agents will always, you know, take advantage of that. So what do you do? We'll just manage that. There's nothing we can do. They will charge caution fee that more than 50% of the time, even when you are leaving, you cannot get back. The legal fee, there's no, so it's just like that. It's just like that. And because of the high demand, even when you say you cannot afford it or please they should, they tell you to go. Somebody else will come and pay for it. So that is the dilemma.
Let's take a shift now from housing, financing to the reforms and government initiatives. Over the years, the federal government, including state government, has come up with several initiatives to improve, access to housing in Nigeria. But it hasn't been productive. It hasn't been, given any substance over the years. Talk to us. What has been the challenge when it comes to reforms, and providing good initiative when it comes to housing development in Nigeria?
Like I would say again, the government can only do much. Government has tried to do some, but I mean, it's like throwing if it's like providing housing for 500 people where you have 10 million people. How far can that go? That's you're not solving even 10% of the problem. As of today, Nigeria has over 17,000 or 17 million housing unit deficit. So where are we going to start from? So, but some of the initiative that I know the government can put in place. Number one, like this Federal Mortgage Bank, the National Housing Fund scheme, they can expand it so that more people can take advantage of it. Make it a national orientation program, part of the national orientation program. That is one thing that the government can do. They can laud it, they can really go extra mile and then pump money into the Federal Mortgage Bank, or have a sort of arrangement with banks to be able to fund real estate developers. Because banks are not doing that. In fact, banks are competing with real estate developers because they go into the same business. So these are some of the initiatives that the government can take. Because one, if the funding is not there, then there's nothing any developer can do. If access to fund, if access to long-term loans are not there through the banks, what can they do? So for initiative, the government must also look at take a holistic approach to it, so that somebody even in the village, somebody in Kogi, somebody in Kano, somebody in Edo can also have access to housing fund or housing loan. We have done it before in this country. It was possible. So yes, our population is not also helping. And then the migration to city centers is also not putting a lot of pressure and demand, rapid demand, to those city centers. But that is a normal thing in a, cosmopolitan city and, the kind of system we run.
Okay, let's talk about the regulations towards urban planning. So how can regulations on urban planning guide housing development and even ensure efficient land use, also preventing informal settlement? We find in some new areas where developments are ongoing, it's scattered. We've talked about that before at another time when we talked about real estate. But what regulations will ensure efficient use of land and proper urban planning? How would that also affect the way housing is priced?
Well, the first thing is physical planning laws. Recently, if you are aware, you'll find that Lagos state government is going around, demolishing houses that are built on, drainage path, canal path. That is happening. It happened in Ikotai. It happened in VGC. It happened just all in the last, 2 weeks. And the problem is that for developing areas, if people don't know what government or what the town planning structure is, then there's a problem. Because the people that sell land, the Omoniles and all that, don't know anything about town planning. They don't know anything about the government structure or government plan for that area. Government is not communicating to anybody, and people will just buy and then build. And it is after several years or whatever that government will now come and say, hey, where you build is on the path of canal. But at the end of the day, they will still blame the house owners or the developer that, well, you did not come to town planning to come and find out, what is the plan. But sometimes, for example, the development going on in Bejuleki now, there is no clear-cut, layout in that whole axis. Nothing. So people are just building and building and building until several years down the line, government is now going to wake up. Oh, we want to create road here. Oh, there's congestion here. Oh, there's flooding happening here. And so that is not good. And also we must have a national urban development policy. National urban development policy. There must be building codes that should be followed. There must be zoning regulations. There must be a good and realistic land use act. These are things that need to be put in place. Up till tomorrow, people still just develop an estate. I live in an estate where government has not done anything in the estate. No road. We had to construct the road. We are still doing other parts. We had to, do the drainage, put the street light, put the gate, put everything, run the electricity into the estate. I mean, so is it going to be after some years now, government will now come and say, okay, you need to now pay your land use, whatever, for an estate that they've not invested a dime. So there's a whole lot of issues. And then is that when they now want to come later and say, no, the drainage is meant to pass here because there's flooding in some areas. We now need to run a canal. So these are things that, those are the complications we have. And it's a big problem, big problem.
Now let's look at the activities of land grabbers, popularly known as Omonile. It's what you call a necessary evil. Now, what kind of reforms or initiatives are you expecting from the government to regulate their activities? Because it's been challenging to curb their activities over the years. But what kind of initiative are you expecting from the government to curb, the influence of people called land grabbers, popularly known as Omonile?
Well, in Lagos State, there's a it is now illegal for land grabbers to operate the way they used to operate. Because that has been just tamed a bit. That is in Lagos, because Lagos at least is more, at least a bit more organized than other states. So the government is the only one that can, but because of our culture, now we have a property in, Magboro axis, and then that is under OPIC. Now, even when you go directly to OPIC to buy the land from the Ogun State Property Investment Company, you must still go back to the Baale of that area to pay money. Because even when government has given you your title document to move into the land and, take ownership, the Omoniles will tell you, you have to see us. You cannot, how will you just enter into our father's land, even though government has taken it over? I mean, so you must see them for you to peaceably develop your property. And, these are people without face, because how many do you want to say you want to arrest, or you want to? So there's always the balance. Now, the only good thing that has evolved out of the system is the intervention of real estate companies that has now come in to deal with the Omoniles and then save the populace from directly interfering or interacting with Omonile. And that is the only structure now that has reduced, and put an end to the issue of, oh, I bought land and Omonile took it over. Oh, they asked me to come and pay again. The real estate company actually take that burden and that risk of, their clients. So that, for example, you're buying land from us, you have no issue, no concern with Omonile, because the real estate company, we've already purchased, we've already dealt with them, we've settled all the people we need to settle. They know us, we interact well with them, with their ballers, with everybody, with the families. They are okay, they are happy. So you go in, and then because you are building within an estate perimeter, when you want to build, no Omonile is going to go there to go and disturb you. No Omonile is going to enter into the estate property area. So you are protected. Even when there are issues where, for example, government now comes in and says, oh, they want to use the land for something else, your investment is secure with the real estate company. Because you are also not dealing directly with government, you are not at loss. So that is the savings and the comfort we have given to clients. That if you are investing, you're buying directly from us, go to sleep. Your investment is with us. You are not dealing with Omonile, you are not dealing with, so the responsibility is on us. So it's like we're giving the people at least that assurance and confidence that at least whatever you're buying through us is safe.
Okay, so what can be done to ensure adherence to bidding codes and standards to ensure safety in housing development? Often we hear of cases of bidding collapse in one part of the country or the other, and lots of housing developments going on nationwide. So how can, I don't know, bidding codes and their standard, but adherence to the standards, what can be done to enforce it?
Well, why are there no adherence? One is because somebody is settling somebody not to do the right thing. The codes are there, the standards are there. We are building some structures. I mean, there are about, for Lagos State, at least there are about 5 different agencies that will approach you where you are putting up a structure. 5. That's the minimum. The environment, the safety, they will come. So it's not like they don't know or they are not aware of structures that come up or that they don't approach them. But what happens? Settlement. And then they go. Nobody is doing the proper test or the proper checks or ensuring the proper safety is maintained. So all this goes back to the government, that the government should just enforce or ensure that proper building codes are followed by developers. There's no other way to it. There's no other, thing to do. It's not, the developer can decide to do anything, but it is the government that will say, no, this cannot work. I mean, we've had 2 terrible, instances in Ikoyi just in the last 2 years. High-rise buildings. How? Why? So that's all I can say about that.
Let's look at some of the challenges or problems associated with land use planning and development in Nigeria, which is where the basic problems usually come from. We have the Land Use Act. We ought to take care of this. Is there a need for reform, and then how effective has this been when it comes to land use planning and development in Nigeria?
I don't think it's about a new reform. It's just enforcement. It's just enforcement. There's no need for any new land use. What we have is more than enough. What are the basic things you need? It's not like there's any new thing in building technology or building structure. That is nothing. It's just enforcement.
To something you said earlier while we were talking about housing finance. You mentioned that the National Housing Fund, for those who were parts of it, who were making contributions, they can have access to about 25% of it, but they can have access to it when they want to buy a property with title. So is there a need to change some of the laws around this to make it easy for those who are part of the scheme and for others to come? Because you also talked about how housing or properties with title are very expensive, and that may be a discouragement or a disincentive for people to be part of it.
Well, to be honest, yes, for an institution to invest in a land without title is too much risk. There's no business risk analysis that's going to, approve that. So, but the only thing is where government, because also getting land title is also where the bottleneck is. We have properties now that we've been waiting for 3 years just to get the title. Because for every title, for you to get just an excision, for a land to be officially, exceeded to the family, the governor must approve it. How many of the families have access to be able to approach the governor or for their papers to actually get to the desk of the governor and then to get it approved? So it is in fact, we have to sponsor some families that have hectares of land. The cost of even doing survey, they cannot afford. the cost of processing, the title, they can't afford. So they need, sponsors like us to come in and then help them. And it still takes years. So that is another area of serious bottleneck. Serious bottleneck for families to get a decision, or for an exceeded land to now be gazetted, and then to now move to the point of, oh, maybe issuing of CO. So it's a whole long journey. And that would delay, the number of lands that have title. So that is another, story for another day. So that is where we are, and that is why it is not easy for the ordinary people to have access or to be able to buy lands that are titled or that have title. So they rather just start, with a land without title and then hope that someday, somehow. So, I mean, so it's a most of the estates that are developed in Ajah down to most of them, they don't have titles yet. And people are built for like 10 to 20 years. Families are yet to be given excision to those lands. So even the property owners cannot process anything, because if the government does not release the land to the family, there is no way you can process anything to get your CO. So that is where we are.
That's great. Otumba Agbemi Oyeni, we need to appreciate you for spending time with us on Early Extinct this morning. You've shared your thoughts in respect to the reforms, housing financing in Nigeria. Thank you so much for spending time with us on Early Extinct this morning.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure always.
A pleasure. All right, let's go on a short break now to accommodate another guest who's going to talk about something that's related to housing in Nigeria. You don't need to go away. Just stay with us, because it's getting bigger and getting more interesting. Stay with us.
Hi, my name is Fred Amata, and you're on to Souq News.
If you're watching this channel for the first time, make sure you continue to watch it, because this is Souq News.
Shout out to Souq News. Actually, I don't know. I really enjoyed the little moment I spent with you, and I think with more of this.
Souq News. Here's the Souq News, who had the courage to transcend a locked-off camera and actually have a conversation with a human being. It's a pleasure, Souq News. Thank you very much.
How can indigenous languages be promoted in a country like this?
Statistics show that less than 10% of Nigeria, the population of Nigeria, has, have access to health insurance. You imagine if our population is about 200 million. And
this is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, glad to have you join us once again. It's still Early Exchange, and we've been looking at affordable housing in Nigeria. Earlier, we had Otumba Oyeni, who talked about the reforms and the government initiatives to ensure that housing development is achieved in Nigeria. Like we always say, the conversation is getting bigger and better, and is even getting more interesting and more engaging now because we are expanding the discussion. And to join us in this segment to, drive this discussion, we are being joined by Wisdom Oluwaseun Okoko, who is the co-founder of Orbit Africa Properties. He's here with us in the studio. Wisdom, glad to have you join us.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Good morning, Ma. Thank you.
Now, we're looking at sustainable housing in Nigeria. Over the years, the federal government has come up with several reforms, to ensure that mass housing is available for all. But it hasn't become productive, or, it's something that is enough compared to the number of population that we have. Talk to us. What are some of the critical issues that has propped up over the years and related to sustaining housing development in Nigeria?
Okay, I know you have mentioned one of them, which is the situation of population in Nigeria. We understand that we are over about 200 million as a country, and it is a major challenge that has faced us as a country, Nigeria. And as much as the governments are making efforts, it looks like this effort is not tallying with the population growth, because you see the population in form of people giving birth, population is growing, people migrating into Nigeria. People migrating into Nigeria too. There are a lot of people in other sub-African countries like Nigeria and all that. They feel like a greener pasture, you understand, is when we come into Nigeria. And so this population is a major, the population issue is a major challenge that has faced the country and even the government and all the effort they are making towards sustainable housing. We also have, maybe personally, I'll call it the behaviors of Nigerians, you understand. Now, we understand that when it comes to sustainable housing, there are what we call plans, there are what we call layouts, there are what we call, there are things that Nigerians are supposed to follow, lay down rule. For example, let me give you an example. So if we use Lagos as an example now, we have what we call the master plan for Lagos as a state. Now, over time, you see that we have gone against the master plan when it comes to sustainable housing, when it comes to planning of the state and all this. So I believe that we have the population as a challenge. We also have the behaviors of Nigeria as a challenge. We also have the availability of this material, because when we talk about sustainable housing, we're talking about housing facilities that that has less adverse effects to maybe the climate, to the environment and all that. That's what we're talking about. And there are materials, especially when it comes to development of houses, that needs to be available, you understand. But these materials are really scarce, especially when it comes to Nigeria. Let me give you an example. So everybody is used to the construction of houses with blocks. That's what is very popular in Nigeria. But if you go outside Nigeria, go to the UK, go to other parts of the world, you see them going into using sustainable products in construction of houses. Like you see them using bamboo, you see them utilizing cellulose, you see them using bricks, even bricks. I know bricks is kind of available in Nigeria to an extent, but not really cost effective as a normal block everybody. So I believe that the availability of materials for the construction of houses is one of the challenges too that has faced us as a country in achieving sustainable housing, even from the government. Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the trend. From what you just talked about, you mentioned the use of bamboo sticks. Before this time, people were using that in building houses in Nigeria, but once modernization set in, people began to go for blocks. So it seemed like it's the old pattern coming back now. And Nigerians have already developed a taste for such houses built with blocks. How can that be changed? Because it seems to be a preference. If you're to build a house with bamboo, are there creative ways to make this look like what you have with modern houses?
Okay, yes. I know that you have, I know that in some advanced, let's call it offices or locations, you see that the products you see from some of these bamboos and all that, they are very beautiful. And the way you see it's being packaged now, it's not the way we have always known it. When in those days, when you see people live in bamboo house, you feel that they are maybe people in the rural areas and all that. But these days, you even find in urban communities, you find construction of houses with some of these materials you're talking about. And then you see them come out very, very beautiful. You understand? So I feel that we have now gone into that stage that this bamboo, this wood, has been, will I say processed? You know, will I say processed? They've been processed in a kind of way that when you use them in the construction of a house, in short, even from the outside, if somebody does not even tell you that this house was constructed with a bamboo or with timber, you may not even know. I also feel that there should be a sensitization on people on the benefit of using some of these other materials in the construction of housing. When we talk about sustainable housing development, people should be aware of the benefits. Let me give you an example. When you construct houses with some of this bamboo, some of this timber we talk about, you cut down on a lot of hazards. And we understand that bamboo or trees help absorb carbon. So anybody who is staying in the house would have more purified air than an individual who is staying in a house that is built with bricks and built with blocks. Yes, so there should be a sensitization to the common man, to the community. There should be campaign, especially to preach that we understand that, yes, concrete is what everybody is used to, but there is a way we can return to the old pattern. There's a way we can return to the way things have been before that will even help us, number one, in improving our health as individuals who stay in those houses, and number two, in cutting on living costs, cutting on the cost to use. I was studying something about India. They have this campaign on sustainable housing, you understand, in a part of India. And they said that compared to other parts who still use brick and all that, they have cut on 30% of the normal life expensive they're supposed to use to live when it comes to electricity, when it comes to going to the hospital and all that. They have been, so if we sensitize Nigerians, because we're in Nigeria, so if we sensitize Nigeria on the benefit of sustainable housing, the benefits it can add to the community, the benefits it can add to the health of people, and then these things, like I said in the first time, can be made available. When I mean made available, also like subsidized. For example, if we have the government carrying it personally to say, okay, all real estate developers, maybe there is a mandate that, okay, out of all the estate you construct, you must have a place that is dedicated that, okay, you must use this material for the development of this house and all that. And then if we are importing this material, it will be subsidized and made available to you and all that. I think that it will also go a long way to encourage developers and also Nigerians to go the way of the sustainable housing part. Yeah.
Talking about subsidy, does that imply that the materials are expensive? And let's just look at the durability. People are building to last them, to last their entire lifetime, so they can even pass on the houses as inheritance to their children. How durable are these materials?
Okay, yes, you first of all talked about price. You talked about price. Now, the truth is that when you talk about sustainable housing, majority of the materials are not produced in Nigeria. Unlike blocks, you know, blocks, everybody can just make block with cement, you have that. But when you talk about sustainable housing, I'm talking about construction of houses that has to do with wood, because it's not just this normal bamboo we see on the street or normal bamboo they use when they want to cast the house. No, you understand, these bamboos have to go through process. they also have to be treated, because you're talking about durability. Now, we understand the fact that people are used to termites. When termites comes on, when you talk about wood, before you know termites, but they are treating, there are processes that these woods will go through that we help them to last a long time, help them to last a long while. And also you talked about people wants to build for their lifetime. They want to make sure that whatever I'm building now will last me to my children and all that. That is also possible, because when you talk about sustainable housing so let me give you an example. So somebody built a house in Lekki now, and then maybe he has a job in VI, and then you lose your job and maybe you want to relocate to Abuja. You understand? When you talk about sustainable housing, it is, you can move your house. Let me use that word, mobile house. You understand?
How do you move?
Okay. So in the construction of this house, unlike the bricks and all that, where you have to use cement and it looks like whatever you are building is a permanent structure, on this other one, they are detachable. We have one of that house in Aja. In short, I watched a documentary on YouTube on how they constructed that house in about 10 days. 10 days was used in the construction of the framework. And it is because it has to do with, so they have a way that it is being prepared. And then when you just come to the location of the house, you just have to join, screw here to this, screw here to this, screw here to this. And before you know, a house is standing. And if there's a situation where you have to maybe move that, all you just have to do is to unscrew what you have screwed. Like I said, these materials are not made in Nigeria, and that is the reason for the cost. And then when you talk about durability, they are being also processed, and they can last a long time. Yeah.
Now let's look at the role of urban planning and data, because we're talking about sustainable housing. What role will this play in ensuring you have sustainable housing scheme in Nigeria when it comes to urban planning and availability of data? The role urban planning and data will play when it comes to sustainable housing in Nigeria.
We understand that there's a popular saying that anybody who does not plan, you understand, will fail, and it's normal. So when you talk about urban planning is giving layout, giving plan to the settlement of people in a particular community, in a particular region. So data will give you an idea of, so in Lagos, so we have 500 people in Lagos. If the government says that, okay, they want to make house available to the occupants or residents in Lagos, let me use a smaller community, let me use Ikeja, you understand? If they say they want to make that, now, urban planning is, okay, let's go to the drawing board. We understand that if people must stay in a place, there must be basic amenities for these people. So urban planning will help you to understand that, okay, we are going to have 500 people in this location. Aside from having 500 people in this location, that means that we're going to need 40 schools. We're going to need 50 boreholes. We're going to need this road, you understand, to help manage the population in that location. So data will help give an idea of, okay, these are the total number of people that will be in this place. These are the total number of facilities that are required to help the good living of people that will be in this place. And then when we talk about urban planning will help give equal distribution of the resources that will help the healthy living of these individuals in this particular location. So the truth is that even generally, there's no place in the world, and that's the reason why we have shanties and we have slums. There's no place in the world that people are resident in that there will be no need for urban planning. Urban planning, in short, is what should go ahead of the residential availability of people in a particular place. And when you find a place where there is no plan, there is no layout, people just come and erect structures the way they like and all that. That's the reason why you have slums and then you have shanties in Nigeria. So urban planning is important, but aside from urban planning, we also know that data, information, total population of people are also important. That's the reason why, permit me to say, Lagos is the way it is. The amenities of Lagos that was being planned in the construction and master plan of Lagos, we have gone far above that data or that statistics, even generally in Nigeria. And that's the reason for traffic, that's the reason for traffic congestion, that's the reason for too much pressure on the little facilities that are available. You see them talking about they want to do a maintenance on the Third Mainland Bridge. Why? It is because the pressure on the bridge, 247, pressure is on that bridge and all that. And let me just also say this, that also government should also take a knowledge from that. I'm not very sure that our population will continue to go back. It will continue to go up. Let me give you an example. The government, the Lagos State government, are currently constructing an 8-lane from Aja to Ekpe. And in Ekpe is where you have the Dangote refinery. Ekpe is where you have the proposed international airport. You have the Lagos Film City in Ekpe, and then a lot of these facilities in that location. I can tell you for sure that the road that is being constructed in the next 6 years will not service the population of people that will be in that area. That is the truth. That road will become overpressured because we're talking about the location where you have a refinery, you have an airport, you have the settlement of people and all that. You know that there will be in and out movement of people towards that location. Yes, the government have tried to construct an 8-lane, but you are very sure that in the next 10 years, in the next 5 years, that facility may not be able to satisfy the population of people that will go towards that environment. But in general, urban planning is important, and then data is important in the planning of the settlement of people in a particular location. Thank you.
Okay, so still talking about sustainable housing, how does it help with water conservation and waste management?
Okay, well, I know that it's just that in Nigeria, all of us were used to the whole pits, blocks and all that. But in advanced country, I can tell you that waste management, and let me talk about waste, common waste, sewage, that you find in almost every home, have been converted to reusable materials. They have been converted to reusable materials. I know that one or two estates in Nigeria currently are trying to practice it, that I've seen personally, whereby the waste that is being produced in the estate is also being used to generate electricity, and also being purified to provide water for that same estate. Yes. So when we talk about, and this is all under sustainable housing, sustainable house. So how do we, number one, utilize anything that will come from housing, that will come from a place of residence of people, anything that will come that will cause an adverse effect to the community? How do we now convert that thing to become of to become of a benefit to the individuals who stay in that place? So you have a lot that has to do with the sewage system I've talked about, which has to do with the preservation or the purification of whatever comes out of people so that they can use it again. We also have, when we talk about sustainable housing, sorry, I'm just dwelling on the timber. When we talk about sustainable housing, it goes beyond that. I mentioned cellulose, I mentioned bricks. These are other forms of housing, these are other forms of materials that can be used in the provision of sustainable housing. When you talk about people staying in a house and all that, you understand? But when we talk about this timber that I'm talking about, I said something about the air that people consume who stay in houses. Now we understand that trees absorbs carbon dioxide. So a house that is constructed with timber, for example, is going to have less carbon dioxide than a house that is being constructed with brick. When you talk about bricks, that is being constructed with block, when you talk about bricks, if a fire incident happens in a house that is being constructed with bricks, right, they are assured of safety than a house that is being constructed with concrete. You understand? So these are some of the benefits that sustainable housing will contribute to individuals, to the community, and entirely to the climate. Yeah.
All right, let's take a breather now, and when we return, we'll have conversation in respect to upgrading of shanties and slums in Nigeria. Wisdom Oluwaseun is still here with us. You just stay with us.
Three Wise Men. Iconic sculptures and statues adorn major metropolitan cities of the world. In Lagos, Nigeria, the statue of three men designed to depict the state's cultural heritage and to usher in visitors and tourists into the ever-accommodating center of excellence is no doubt an astounding work of art. Originally built under the administration of Colonel Raji Rasaki, designed by Bodu Shodende in 1991 and standing over 12 feet high, referred to as Agba Meta or Aro Meta, the three sculptured chiefs were placed along the Lagos-Ibadan toll gate to welcome people coming into Lagos State. The statue called the Three Wise Men by many has become a major signature for the state. Three white-capped chiefs clad in white wrappers knotted across their shoulders and with clenched right fists are shown in the artwork. The images fascinate and create impressions in the minds of visitors coming into the state, captivating the attention of visitors who look with keen interest, pondering on the messages which the posture of the engraved images signifies. The Three Wise Men has been relocated thrice from its original position at Ojodu Berger end of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway to Magodo area before its final relocation to its present site at Olowopopo Drive. The sculpture has suffered severe damages over the years and renovated. Bodu Shodende, through this sculpture, depicted the highest honor that can be afforded to anyone in the Eko greeting tradition. The Three Wise Men, Arometa, Souq Enlightenment.
How can indigenous languages be promoted in a country like this?
Statistics show that less than 10% of Nigeria, the population of Nigeria, has, have access to health insurance. You imagine if our population is about 200 million. And,
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Many thanks for being there. We're still talking with Wisdom Oluwaseun, who is a co-founder of Orbit Africa Properties. We just talked about sustainable housing. Now let's look at slums and shanties upgrading. Now, when you look at some of the housing in slum areas and shanties, you sometimes wonder how those there are able to cope with the living condition. But what would be needed to improve such infrastructure, considering the fact that those there are low-income earners and may not be able to afford very quality infrastructure? But what can be done to improve the condition of such places?
Okay, yes. Before I go into talking about what can be done to improve the condition living of individuals in these places, I would like to start from a point of, now, we must understand that slums and shanties are, first of all, informal settlements. I don't want to call it illegal, I want to call it informal. But the truth is that majority of the slums and shanties that we have in Nigeria are illegal. When I mean illegal, I mean that they have been scattered many times and then you still find people go back there after a period of time that government does not do something to them. Now we understand that basic amenities, when I talk about basic amenities, I'm talking about road, I'm talking about schools, I'm talking about proper water, I'm talking about power supply. Majority of basic amenities are provided by the government. Now the government many times cannot provide basic amenities in an informal or illegal settlement. I want you to just follow the conversation. Now, let me use Makoko as an example. Now, if you trace the history of Makoko, you know that it came from people who came from Benin Republic, or they call them Egun, that wanted to settle in Nigeria, and then they wanted to thrive in Nigeria, and they just found a place and they just went to stay in that place. There was no legal permission and all that. They just went to settle in the place, and because they are staying in the place and they are human beings, and government will not just come and then begin to say, you understand, and even sometimes when they pursue them, they still come back there. But number one is that people must really understand that if you must really enjoy basic amenities, you must do things correctly. You must do things legally. You must do things properly. You know, recently, the Commissioner of Lagos State demolished some houses. I don't know if you heard about it, along the Ikota Canal. Although those houses may be said to have been constructed properly, but the location where they have constructed those houses, you can call it an illegal settlement. In short, personally, I would call it a slum or a shanty, because that is what slums and shanties are all about. But now we said that we know that in Nigeria, because of the population, we cannot totally take slums and shanties away. That's what I'm talking about, illegal settlement, away from our country or our community and all that. So what the government can actually do is to see how they can provide basic amenities, at least just to help the living of people in that location. Basic amenities like a proper sewage disposal system. So we know that a slum and a shanty, people just wake up and then drop things anyhow and all that. What the government should do, put strategies on ground to see how, okay, at least if we have trucks that we go to this location to help take the waste of people every morning, and even if you ask them to pay a token and all that, we know that these are, you may call them low income earners, people who are the lower cadre of the society and all that, but I think that that's where the government should come to their aid. Another thing is that we see how we can partner with international bodies. Look at the United Nations, they have a department, they have projects that help people who stay in slums and stay in shanties. In short, the information I have is that from the last support that was given to Nigeria, we're giving about $200 million to upgrade individuals who are in slums and who are in shanty. So if there are proper utilization of this fund, you understand, you can help convert Lekki, the place they call Oniru today, at a time, many years back, was like a slum and like a shanty. And then when people came into that environment, because of the presence of people, they started developing the place, and then government saw the need to put attention in the place and construct road, see how they can take power supply to that place and all that. You understand? So in general, they should look for a way of taking natural basic amenities to individuals who are in this place, just to help the upgrade of people in this location.
I would like you to educate us on, the various strategies or sources of financing when it comes to upgrading of slums, because you require funds to do this for individuals, organizations, or government agencies that want to do this. Talk to us some of the financing options or strategies.
Okay, yeah. Now, before I talk about that general financial options, I would like to say that the truth is that many times, if we all wait on the government, we wait on public funds to come and help give us basic amenities, we may wait many years before those amenities come. So first of all is communal effort. So we are 50 staying on a particular street. We know that when rain falls, erosion is everywhere, or there's flooding in that location. There's nothing that stops everybody from coming together and saying, see, let's come together and see how we can construct a drainage. If it means that each house should provide 20,000, let's bring that money together and see how we can provide drainage, because it is all for the benefit of each and every one of us. Some of this money that are coming from US, coming from the government and all that will not come. So aside from that, we also have the federal government. The federal government have budget, have allocations through
Supporters Club had been there for 66 years when it was founded officially, but those who funded it were just doing it for the fun. We just come to the field, drum, sing and go. Nobody gave them any recognition. But I joined them in the year 1977. Well, I paid 2 naira to join. And how did I join? It was because of an incident that happened at the National Stadium. The Shooting Stars of Ibadan and the Bendel Insurance of Benin were playing the semi-final of the FA competition that year. And I had to go to enter the stadium. I paid 4 naira to watch the game. While entering the stadium, the whole place was filled. And when I got inside, there was no place for me to sit down. So many of us were standing out there, people outside the gate of the stadium. There were more than the people right inside. So as at a point in time, while standing, some people just took me off ground and threw me into the crowd. And I started rolling until I landed on the culvert, concrete. Concrete slab. Before I knew it, over 50 people were on my top. And I could no longer breathe. So to me that day, it appeared I was going to die. But through the grace of God, I was able to wriggle out myself of that position. And the man directly on top of me had to leave, because what I did was by biting him, and I had to struggle to go under the concrete slab. And I was right there for the first half of the game, 45 minutes. I was right there under the concrete slab. I couldn't watch the game. It was the breeze that was coming from the outer part of the stadium that saved the situation. After the first half, you know, people will get up to go to the toilets, to go and buy drinks and meet their friends. I had the opportunity of coming out, and a good Samaritan gave me a small place to sit. Even at that, I was very unconscious. I was not comfortable. But the game ended. It was a drawn game. When the game ended, everybody left the stadium, but because I wasn't very comfortable, I had to wait in the stadium for like an hour and a half before I left. So when I left and I got home, 9 p.m. network news, breaking news. 32 people died in the stadium that day. And that, the thought came to me. I probably could have been one of them. But I thank God. That was what informed my decision to say, I will not go to the stadium again until I have the best way to go into the stadium without being killed, maimed, or injured. And I decided to move with those people, and I joined them. But then we were just doing it. Maybe 20 of us, 15, 30 of us, we meet under the trees of the National Stadium, and we go home. And since that period, immediately I became a member. I introduced what they call flag bearing. When from 1977 to 1990, every Nigerian team that came out of the tunnel or goes out there, outside Nigeria, to play, you will see the Nigerian green, white, green flag being carried by one person. It's me. I did that flag bearing for 13 whole years. Whenever the team is played, I will be there with them, whether it's the Super Eagles, the under 20, the under 23, the Falcons, and the rest, all our national teams. Even our club sides going out to play continental. When you see the green, white, green of Nigeria, I used to be the one carrying that flag. So I was with them, and I rose within the ranks from being an assistant secretary to becoming the national secretary and also the chairman of the disciplinary panel of the Nigerian Football Supporters Club. And by 1990, I was voted to be the chairman. That was when the thoughts of registering the club came. So when you hear that the Nigerian Football Supporters Club founder, officially because of its registration, I did the registration. Registering the club, I moved it from Lagos to Ibadan, Oyo State. I'm an Ibadan man. Charity begins at home, they say. So I went to Ibadan. From Ibadan, I moved to Bauchi. I moved to Abuja, Kano, Port Harcourt, all the states of the Federation. By 1992, I went to Cote d'Ivoire, in Abidjan precisely, to launch the Supporters Club. I went there physically, bringing the Nigerians together, those living in Abidjan. I formed the Supporters Club and launched it officially. I left that place, I went to Ghana. I launched it in Ghana. Leaving Ghana, I went to Gambia. I went to Burkina Faso. I went to Mali. I went to Republic of Benin. I went to Togo. I went to all the countries of Africa, putting the Supporters Club in place in those countries. By 1995, I moved to the United States of America. I launched the Supporters Club at the Giant Sports Stadium in New Jersey in 1995. After that, I went to France in 1997 to launch the Supporters Club in France in 1997, because we were already thinking of going to France to play in the World Cup. And if the Super Eagles will not have enough supporters there, what will happen to them? Don't forget that I led the Supporters Club to the United States of America for the very first time we played in the World Cup in 1994. I was at the Copa America in 1995. That was when I had the opportunity of launching the Supporters Club in America. In 1996, I led the Supporters Club to Atlanta in 96. And the winning of the trophy, the gold in football event, made possible by the Supporters Club, support of the Supporters Club. Because when you listen, when that match, you remember that we played a match with Brazil in the preliminary stage, and we lost 1-0. But we had the opportunity again to meet them during the semi-final. And during the semi-final, Brazil had given us 3 goals. We were trailing 1-3 at the interval. And when the second half came up, we were given a penalty, I think 25 minutes to the end of the game. One of our players, I don't want to mention the name, but he knows, he lost that penalty kick. That was when God told me, sing this song. It's a miracle working God. It's a miracle working God. He's the Alpha and Omega. He's a miracle working God. Of course, my members chorused. Indeed, miracle came. We scored the second goal. And the then Minister of Sports, Chief Jim Nwobodo, came to our stand and said, Ladipo, I heard you guys singing, it's a miracle working God. It's like God is going to make a miracle to happen today. I said, yes. And we continued. I changed the song. I have a Father who never fails. I have a Father who never fails. I have a Father who never fails. Who never fails. Who never fails. Forevermore. Amen. Jesus never failed. Amen. Jesus never failed. Amen. Jesus never failed. Jesus never failed. Jesus never failed. Forevermore. We scored the third goal. Then another song came. Poya chukuna gaza. Poya chukuna gaza mere. Messiah yobiuma. Poya chukuna gaza. The match ended and there was to be the extra time. And that time was a sudden death rule. Immediately I sang that song, my people chorused. And the ball was coming to Kanun Wakwo. He was backing the goalkeeper. Chested the ball, raised it up, turned around and tapped it to the net. And that was the 4 goals the Nigerian team scored against Brazil. And they started crying. And I decided to form another song. When Nigeria beat Brazil, when Nigeria beat Brazil, oh, Bebeto start to cry. When Nigeria beat Brazil, why Bebeto? Because they pulled him out. They were thinking they were reserving him because they thought they would meet Argentina in the final. Unknowingly to them, that they will be beaten, they don't know. So I did that song and we sailed into the final, meeting Argentina in the final. And that again happened. Argentina was leading us 2-1. But we came from 1-2 to beat them 3-2. Yeah, to answer your question, I did that to tell you what the supporters club is to the team. And what this man felt by registering the club is that I have that belief. And it is general. Everybody must have it. That this is Nigeria, it's our country. We have to do something by giving it a positive image, whether in Nigeria or outside. You do know that all of us cannot be Mr. President of Nigeria. All of us cannot be governors. And not all of us will be members of the National Assembly. But all of us as Nigerians have special roles to play in giving our country a befitting and positive image. That is the reason why this man has been following football supportership all the time to date. Well, I want to tell you, like I said earlier on, the grace of God has been the secret. The other secret is that my members, I get them reoriented to believe in my vision. All of them supports what I was doing. They all love this country. They want to contribute their own to the good name of Nigeria. That has been the secret. And don't forget, any member of the supporters club should be referred to as a patron par excellence, because they are not paid. They are not given any allowance. They use their time, their money, even at the risk of their lives, to support the cause of Nigeria through supportership. Well, majorly, it is funding. The challenges is funding, because if you have to support the team, yes, they are playing in Lagos, you may not spend much money. But when they are playing in Enugu, they are playing in Uyo, they are playing in Abuja, you need money, no matter how. But come to think of you traveling with 100, 200, 300, 600 supporters outside Nigeria. They will not go by road. They will go by air. It's a lot of money that we need in running the supporters club. So our main challenges has been that of funding. But I can assure you that God has been good to us. We have had some philanthropists, some organizations who have come to assist us by way of supporting us, giving us a lot of money. And if you will not mind, I will have to put it on record that the very first company that supported Supporters Club was Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola did it for 2 years, they could no longer do it. Then for 1 year, MTN did it, they could no longer sustain it. But later we got Globacom. Dr. Mike Adenuga Jr. has been the brain, the backbone, the sponsor and the financier of the Supporters Club for several years, doling out millions from 50 to 60 to 100 million of naira, and even in dollars. So that has been the way, that has been how we have been able to surmount it. We have some philanthropists. We have Taiwo Afolabi, who has always supported us whenever we are going out. I remember Alhaji Aliko Dangote in 1996. He supported us, and some other Nigerians too. Esther Ajayi, when we were going to Russia 2018, I went to this woman and I told her our problems. The second day, she was able to give us 20 million. I went to meet the then governor of Lagos State, His Excellency Governor Ambode. He gave me 10 million. The club, not me per se, he gave the club. And when we were going to Brazil in 2014, that was the very first time any government supported us. We went to Brazil. Before going, I visited the then president, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. After decorating him as our patron, he pronounced a 50 million naira grant for us to go to Brazil. Actually, we were going to request from him a whole plane to take us there because we were going for a national assignment. Supporters Club is a selfless service. But the president gave us 50 million. I mean, Goodluck Jonathan. But we ended up spending 189 million. The difference of that was raised by me going to Dr. Mike Adenuga, Taiwo Afolabi, Esther Ajayi, Ambode, and the rest. That's how we've been running the club. We've been running the club, meeting people who lost the game of football, who lost Nigeria, and they have been helping us. Well, very, very unfortunate. It's a story I hate to be talking about all the time because I've said many things about it more than 100 times. Supporters Club had been there for several years. And Dr. Rafiu Ladipo was the national chairman for just 10 years, from 1990 to 2000. I left that position in 2000. And then somebody else became the national chairman. And that was Alhaji Waidi and Relay Yusuf, who was the chairman for 8 good years. After him, there was Otumba Olatunde Bashorun. He was there for 4 years. And there came a time when one Mr. Vincent Okumagba acted in that capacity for 3.5 years. And there was one little mistake, misunderstanding, because people will not want to wait for their time. And all I told them is, please go through an election. Anybody who would not want to go through an election is not supposed to be on that chair of the national chairman. That's what came up. And the then NFF believed that there could be 20 arms of supporters clubs in Nigeria. It could even run to 100 units. But this is unhealthy. You cannot have a situation where your team is playing right on the field and you have different corners where you have the Nigerian supporters scattered all over the field, singing in different voices. It's not good. But look, I've been able to manage it because God has told me that supporters must not die. Supporters club will not die. I have to be patient to let them see reasons why the supporters club should go and support the teams with unity. As a unit, go and support the team. But if you have funded your own, maybe you have registered your own, you have your own office, you can stay in your office. Manage your office the way you want to manage it. But when it becomes a national assignment, you are going out to represent Nigeria. All of us as supporters must come together to support Nigeria as a group supporting one team. Not when you have some people in angle 90, some people in angle 180, some people in angle 360, some people in angle 60, supporting one team. It does not augur well. There's nothing you are going to achieve from this. I remember when we were in Russia, and my members have gone in. I normally wait for all of them to go in before I will finally go in. So when I was going in as the last person, I entered the stadium and I saw them, some people were up there, I saw some people on the left, I saw some people on the right. And when I was going to meet the band boys, some of their security men came to me, in Russia, and asked me where I was going. I said I was going to meet my people. They said I should bring their ticket, my ticket. And when they saw the ticket, no, you can't go there, go there. That place is not yours. Your seat is downstairs there. How do I coordinate the activities of my members? This is what we've been telling them. Supporters club must be united. They must come together, sing together, cheer the team together, and let us have a befitting result. When the referee and all the match officials see a group of people, even if you are 200 or 300, converging in one special place together, in your uniforms, in your green and white, and you are singing, they know you have come to support your team. So it takes them every reason to want to do the game better. Well, when you are not there, in a capacity crowd of 90,000, we had 5 supporters here, 2 there, 7 there. When the Argentines were about 87,000 in the field, singing for their team. So I believe that the supporters club must be together. I've been able to manage it now, up to now. The national chairman of the supporters club as we speak is Reverend Samuel Ikpeya. He coordinates the activities of the supporters club in Nigeria. While worldwide, I'm the president general because we are supporters club in all the other countries of the world. And when we come together, there must be one person. There must be the head. We have the president of the supporters club in Cote d'Ivoire. We have the chairman of the supporters club in UK, In all Francophone countries, the head of the supporters club is called president. In Anglophone countries, the head of supporters club is addressed as Mr. Chairman. So the President General is not just what we just came out with. It's because there's a need for it. That's why the President General worldwide comes up. Well, I have told you a lot of people don't want to wait for their time. And when you don't wait for your time, what do you lose? You lose much. There was going to be an election. And I called all of them, go and pick your nomination papers for the election. But some of them would not want to because they want appointments. And I don't believe in appointments because we have a constitution in the supporters club that says everybody and anybody who wants to be an officer must contest for election. I insisted that there must be an election. Some people would not want an election because they know, probably they believe they cannot win. They decided to say, oh, let's go our way because we don't want election. That's it. Before now, up to about 8 years, 10 years ago, the Super Eagles were really super. But in the last 8 years, we have not been there. We have not been doing well. Don't forget that in 1994, Nigeria's team, the Super Eagles, were judged to be the 5th best in the world. What is our ranking now? 37th in the world. Even in Africa, what is our ranking? So the Eagles of the last 8, 9 years ago, no, they have not done well at all. I want anybody to tell me, what did we win in the last 8, 9 years? Don't forget that in 1980, we won the Cup of Nations right here at the National Stadium. In 1994, we were in Tunisia. We won it. In 2013, we were in South Africa. We won the Cup of Nations. In 1996, we won the Atlanta Olympics. Since then, what can we point to that we have won? So the Eagles of the last 8, 9 years, no. They did their best, but their best was not good enough for Nigeria. And that's why we didn't win nothing. But I want to believe that the present crop of Eagles being put together now, going for the Cup of Nations, we want to write their names in gold. And if that is so, it means they have to put in their best to see that going to Cote d'Ivoire 2024 will not just be going there to make a number. We're going there to give a very good account of ourselves. Who says it is not possible for Nigeria to win the Cup of Nations again? It is possible, but it takes a determined group of people as players who wants to write their names in gold to do that. When you are rating the coach, a coach is as good as his last match. Pasero was employed, he was given a target, and the NFF has the power to either sack or renew his contract. I think according to them, maybe he has performed according to what they want. But for me, as a Nigerian, I want Pasero to go to Cote d'Ivoire and show us that he is serious and show us that the Super Eagles can still fly and make us get minimally play in the semi-final of the Cup of Nations. Anything short of that, no. Well, I want to believe that our Nigerian coaches are good. There have been 2 or 3 foreign coaches that have done well. Westhoff, Bonfrejo, and this witch doctor, what's his name again? I'll remember his name. This guy qualified us to play in the World Cup with a match to go. The witch doctor. Well, the witch coach, we call him, we remember it, now it will come back. So, since then, there's no foreign coach that has done better. I was one of the people that went to London to recruit this man I'm talking about. When we recruited him, he came to Nigeria and he made us to qualify for the World Cup with a match still to go. Philippe Trouzet. I was there in England where we interviewed him. Well, since then, it has been one coach coming to take our money, not giving a very good account of us, of himself. But the Nigerian coaches, let's also praise some of them. Some of them. The late Shuaibu Ahmadu qualified us to play in the World Cup, even though he did not take us there. The late Stephen Keshi also made us to win the Cup of Nations of 2013 in South Africa. So if that happens, who says the Nigerian coaches are not good? Some Nigerian coaches have proved themselves, but they still need to do more. But these two coaches, exceptional. That is the real reason, the real controversy we're having between the NFF and the coaches. You don't hire a coach if you know you cannot pay his wages. You must be ready to pay his salary as at when due. There's no coach who will labor and labor, and after which he would have trained your players, and you are owing him salaries of 5 months, 7 months. Which coach will take that? Where is that happening across the world? Nobody will accept that. So that has to be looked into. And that is why the NFF has got to look for serious sponsors and raise funds for them to be self-sufficient, to be able to take all these challenges of paying the coaches wages. That is a big problem. And I think the present NFF board, led by Ibrahim Guzo, will look into that, look for sponsors, serious sponsors who are interested, not just interested, but who are genuinely interested in the Nigerian game and in the Nigerian nation. You may be interested in the Nigerian game, but if you are not interested in the Nigerian game, Nigerian nation, you may not give what it takes to do. You must have the love of this country at heart, and then love the game also. In the last 15, 10, 8 years, our boxing went down. In the last 5 years to today, our boxing has come up. I am the president of the Nigerian Boxing Board of Control, and I confirm to you that every week now, we have a boxing championship. We had one last week. Tomorrow, we will have one in Abuja. When I come back the following week, there's another one. We have promoters now promoting our boxing events. And our boxers are now earning big money, other than what they were earning before. In those days, they were earning 20,000, 30,000. They go on the ring, they hit them, they shed blood, and they sweat. What do they earn? But since the last 3-4 years, our boxers have been earning big money. Some of them earning millions. Some of them traveling abroad to earn $5,000, $10,000. And that is made possible because we have a group of people in the Nigerian Boxing Board of Control who respects each other, who respect the boxers, who respects the coaches, and who respects the promoters. Take, for instance, I'm sorry to mention, Go TV. Go TV night every day. They've had about 29 Go TV sessions. You know what that means? Go TV for every boxing fight. They don't spend less than 20 million. They even spend more. And our boxing now is being watched all over the world, if not just Africa. A lot of things have been said about this. We have sent memos, we have sent advice, we have met with the people in charge severally. I've had to write to put the Minister of Sports, the National Assembly, and the rest. How can we develop our sports? It's very important. Without grassroots development, you won't be there. As a matter of fact, Kanu Nwankwo happens to be a product of the Nigerian League. J.J. Okocha, product of Nigerian League. Finidi George, Emmanuel Amunike, and all of them played in the Nigerian League. How many of our Super Eagles players, those that are playing for us now, do you see what developed here? Maybe you have 2 or 3 home-based players playing. But the real product for our football development, they are here in Nigeria. We have to go back to those things we were doing that time when we got the likes of the Segun Odegbami, Henry Nwosu, Christian Chukwu, down to Stephen Keshi, Okocha, and the rest. We have to go back. We don't have to rely on those players who have been serving us in the last 12, 15 years, believing that they will continue to serve us the same way. No matter what you do, players will get weak. They will age. And when they are aging, that's when they start referring to them as tiring legs. You need replacements for them. How do you get that? You can only get them from the local scenes. We have various clubs in Nigeria playing the leagues, the Premiership, the National League, and the rest. 20 teams in one. Do you know how many of our boys out there that can play football if we harness them, bring them together, and give them the right training? Of course, let me ask you, how many of our club sides have feeder teams? Feeder teams, they are very important to the development of the game. When you have a junior player playing the feeder team and is maturing, bring him to replace a tiring leg in the senior team. How many of those teams that we have can boast of feeder teams? How many of them can boast of their own fields? Perhaps we have about 3 clubs that are privately owned. But others are owned by governments, state governments. And state governments, what do they use them for? For political gains. And if it is political gains, well, it's off it. Let's do football like it is done elsewhere. Football is big business. People are making billions of dollars in football. Nigeria can do same. If we do same, we will take off all this nonsense. The boys going about doing a lot of violence, going to do yahoo, going to do kidnapping and the rest. You will have all of them looking forward to becoming millionaires and billionaires in future, and of course becoming employers of labor apart from fending for their families.